Hey guys, welcome to the podcast and unprecedented brand new topic. We're going to talk about publications today. Have never talked about publications before on this show. And I want you guys to welcome Jolan. This is the first time that she's coming on and she's amazing. She's going to be an awesome guest. So Jolan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the time to be on here, and I'm very excited to talk about pubs and how the MSLs and the medical affairs can be involved in all good things pubs.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the title, the actual official title is the Publication Playbook Turning Science into Strategy. We have to be official about this. So, Jalan, why don't you do an introduction, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Sounds good. So I'm Jolan. I currently am the executive director of publications at Mirum Pharmaceuticals, which is a rare biotech company located in both California and in Switzerland. And I've been with the company for about 5 years. I've been in industry for well over 20 years in all sorts of different roles within medical affairs. I like education. I love to teach. I love to learn. I love to publish. So I've been excited to be in this role for as many years as I have been. And science is key and science is learning. I live in California. I've got 5 kids and we've got a really busy house and a really busy life. And I'm excited to be here.
And we're lucky to have you because you're a busy lady and it's Friday afternoon. For those of you who don't
It
know,
is.
we are recording on a Friday afternoon. So there's plenty of other things Jolan could be doing right now. But she's here sharing her knowledge and her opinions and everything we're talking about today are her own and do not represent Mirum Pharmaceuticals or anybody else that's out there. Guys, I want to welcome I've been getting a lot of kind of comments and messages on LinkedIn from people saying that they're new listeners. So I want to welcome all new listeners to the show. For those of you that may not know who I am, I'm Tom Caravela, and I am the host of the MSL Talk podcast. I also am the founder of the Carolyn Group, which is an MSL recruitment firm. If we're not either connected or if you're not following me on LinkedIn, please do so because I post a lot of content specifically for you guys. So let's talk pubs.
All
And
right.
I think I think like most everybody that's going to be listening to this understands what pubs are. The question is, why are they important to the pharmaceutical industry and the biotech industry?
Right. So, Tom, they're the key to really everything. They're the
Mm,
key to providing scientific knowledge from the company to the world. They're not just something that's used for regulatory approvals. They're to provide credibility and transparency from the companies to the physicians and ultimately the patients and the caregivers. Data and scientific exchange are truly key in establishing this trust between the pharma and biotech industry and the physicians and the patients. And so anything that we can put out there that talks about the diseases that we support all around, that talks about the medications, the cutting edge technologies out there are so important. And we play a fundamental role in medical affairs to be a bridge between the data and the communication of it.
And that's a pretty bold statement that everything has to revolve around pubs. But when you put it that way, I mean, it really does make sense because that's really the job of medical affairs and the MSLs is to make sure that their messaging is accurate based upon the data, which comes from, the publications. But how do publications influence and shape the strategy behind medical affairs?
Right. So this becomes something that's, I think, really important to talk about from a collaboration situation.
Okay.
So the way that we figure out what the strategy is from a publication standpoint is really engaging various departments within medical affairs and even outside of medical affairs, including like clinical development, market access, depending on the audience and the people that we're interested in. Because our publication strategies are based upon the unmet needs. How do we determine what the unmet needs are? Well, this really comes from working with the MSL team. The MSL team, they are on the forefront of this. They are out there meeting with physicians every single day. They are talking to them about the data. They're asking about what's going on in their practice, what works, what doesn't. So they know about what is out there that we need to focus on. So the insights that that the MSLs provide are key to help shape our strategy. I mean, obviously we have companies in general have a pipeline of medications and the disease states that they're supporting, and they have a structure for when they're going to get like registration trials published and presented. But there are so many publications that go beyond that that help to address the unmet need, because those are just the tip of the iceberg. And that's why the MSLs are so important in helping to shape our publication strategy. And I say this because maybe I'm a little biased. I started my career as an MSL. I loved the storytelling that goes into it. Having been in academia and being able to write manuscripts, it kind of all tied together that I wanted to go this route and tie in the storytelling, the understanding from the physicians I learned as an MSL into another role focused on publications. But we couldn't do anything without the involvement of the MSL team in medical affairs.
Yeah, and um you so obviously you being an expert in this space, having the knowledge and the experience that you have, like not all MSLs, especially new MSLs that might be listening to this, really know what they need to understand about pubs and how it affects their roles. So, what could you tell MSLs about what they really kind of need to know about publications?
Right. I mean, I think a big part of the MSL role is to really understand and have this deep understanding of clinical data, and then be able to communicate this in a way that is telling a story, and obviously in an appropriate and compliant manner, but engaging the physicians so they can see the scientific acumen, the understanding that the MSLs have. That's like the forefront of being an MSL, but that's also the forefront of working in publications and bringing publications to life, is to have this deep understanding and then taking in what you learn from your communications and your scientific exchanges with the physicians that you work with. So even as a new MSL, I mean, most MSLs I've ever met, they and myself included, I mean, we all kind of like to geek out on the science, right? We all really enjoy it. We love talking about it. I mean, you can get all of us in a room and we just will dive into the weeds about everything from mechanism of action of a molecule to the mechanism of disease. We'll just wax poetically about, gosh, what happens if we could figure out a way to impact this part of the brain and this thing, and we can go on forever. I mean, we liked that. We're science nerds, and that's in the best way possible. And so, because that's what MSLs want to do, and new MSLs are coming to learn that, it makes sense that publications would be such an important component of that, because that's taking all of their deep understanding of the clinical data, it's taking their learnings from their physicians and then putting it together. They all kind of are related. They all kind of circle together, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah. And I kind of like to look at, well, as a recruiter, I always wind up looking at the angle of where are the opportunities, and by MSLs understanding pubs and having, I guess, maybe an interest, I imagine there's opportunities for people to transition from an MSL into what we used to call an in-house role. I don't know if they're all
Yeah.
necessarily in-house or whether it can be a virtual role, but maybe transition to a career in pubs in some way. Have you seen that? If so, like talk to these guys about what they might be able to aspire to.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I love most, I mean, I don't want to age myself, but I'm no longer in the early part of my career. I'm probably more in the middle to later part of my career. So I've been around for a long time, and I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to transition across various different roles. I think as MSLs, one of the things I always found as an MSL, and I know a lot of my MSL colleagues and team members have found, is it can be challenging to figure out where your career opportunities lie. I mean, there's the MSL role, there's then the senior MSL role. Some MSL teams have a principal MSL role, but
Mm.
then after that, it's like going to be an MSL director, which let's be honest, which is an incredible role, but it's not necessarily a promotion because you're no longer in the science, you're managing a team, and that's a whole different skill set, right? So we always get the question like, where else can we go? And to me, that was always an important part from my career development is I wanted to go and see where else I could go. I've been an individual contributor. I've done all the MSL. I've managed MSL teams. Where else could we go? So there's training, internal medical training, commercial training, there's scientific medical communication, and there's publications. These are all incredible ways to transition into these roles. I know that at several of the different companies that I've worked at, we always encourage, and as a leader, I've always encouraged what I call internships so that we can give MSLs and really other members of medical affairs opportunities to do like a 4 to 8 week internship in different departments where they can do their own projects, they can do their own kind of learnings. And then if they like that, we can talk about transitioning into potential roles as they become available. And I think having that set up from the leadership perspective is so important. I always wanted the MSLs and my teams to know that you're not just pigeonholed into one role. If you love it, stay there. The MSL role is, I think, the best role in the industry, bar none. But if you love it, stay there. But if you're also looking for other avenues, you don't have to just be in one area. These are all related. People hire from that. I've hired MSLs to be in publication roles and in training roles because it makes a lot of sense. And to your point, are these called in-house roles? Are they virtual roles? So a lot of them are in-house. I will say that I've been in publications, medical information, scientific communications. All of my roles in those areas have been virtual. Granted, probably some of it was due to COVID, but before COVID, I was also virtual too. So I think there is opportunity and flexibility depending on the companies that you're looking for or the companies that you're in. And my 2 cents in all of this, and I always say this to my team. Heck, I say this to my kids. I even said this to them last night. The answer is always no if you don't ask.
Mm.
And so I think it's super important if you have an interest in looking and exploring other opportunities, ask for it because the leaders on your team, they don't want you to go anywhere. They want you to stay in the company. I never want anyone to leave. But if my team is ready to grow, then I want to give them the wings to be able to go to where it's going to best help their development. And the more you do that, the more they want to stay within the company because they're getting the opportunities that they don't have to go anywhere else to get. So I
Right.
think asking for it and knowing that you're not this is if you do this role, you're not you have other opportunities that you can look at as well.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on one thing you mentioned, like a lot of people say to me, like, is the MSL career is it a dead end job? Is that it? Am I going to be an MSL for the rest of my life? And the answer is no. To your point, you just really eloquently pointed it out. But not everybody aspires to be a manager or a
No.
director. And let's be honest, like there's not that many of those jobs available. So it's important to look at other things like, strategy or excellence roles, pubs roles, as we're talking about right now, maybe MedInfo, medical communications, scientific communications, whatever the title might be. But don't feel like as an MSL, this is it. This is all you're going to do for the rest of your life. And just like Jolan said, you have to start raising your hand and you have to start to take on special projects and get more involved. If let's bring this back to pubs. If you are interested in pubs and you want to learn more, um, let's talk about what if you can share what are the different types of publications. I don't know a whole lot about them either, but I know there's primary and secondary. So if you can kind of give us a rundown of what that looks like, I think a lot of people would benefit from that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Tom. So there are primary publications, and that's kind of things like registration trials. So basically the
Mhm.
trial that's used to get the medication to approval. There's secondary publications. Those would be more like maybe systematic literature reviews of the whole disease state, maybe the different like treatment landscape, treatment management algorithms, guidelines. And then I also kind of throw in there like real world case series, which we do a lot of across the board at the various companies I've been at. And then third, I would also say are presentations at medical congresses. Those to me are like the three that are the most important and imperative to kind of talk about. From an MSL standpoint, I think what's to me, having been an MSL and then talking to my MSL colleagues, the most fun to talk about, obviously, is always what's new and interesting and exciting. Well, where does all the new and interesting, exciting things come from? They come from the medical congresses, right? They have the late breaker abstracts. So we always look and say, "Ooh, who's doing the late breaker orals at this congress? Or are there posters? What's going on?" We have to see. And this is from like what the data are from your particular company, and also from a competitive intelligence. What else are other companies in the same disease state presenting on? Because we need to, as you know, as MSLs and medical affairs as a whole, we need to be at the cutting edge of understanding what is out there, what's coming. And so those are the great things we can kind of focus on. With that, when you work with your physicians and the MSLs have established these really great relationships, a lot of these physicians don't have time to attend some of these medical congresses. So they become really dependent and wanting the MSLs to come out to them and present on like the best of the Congress. And so this is a great opportunity for the MSLs to get a deep dive into the clinical data, not just from their company, but from the other avenues that have been presented at the meetings, provide it to the physicians. And that's a great way to show how deep their scientific understanding is. And another way that they can provide and contribute a lot to the learning of and education of the physicians. So they want them to come back for repeats. And they like the idea of having that transparency and that scientific exchange. It increases the trust that the physicians have with the MSLs and that relationship part. To me, that's like one of the most important things from publications that the MSLs can be involved with. And then I think number two, obviously, are going to be the primary manuscripts, like you had mentioned, which is going to be those approvals. In general, as a publication strategy, irrespective of what company you're working at, you always want to try to get your registration trial published in a peer-reviewed journal as close as possible to the approval of your product, because you need that to help the MSL team go out there and provide education as appropriate to the physicians in that disease state. So those are the key ones to kind of that the MSLs really focus on. I think like the review papers, the secondary manuscripts are a nice like cherry on the top of the cake of the medical congress presentations and the primary manuscripts. And then also with that, having these real world cases, which you never can do until you have something already out there and established. And then you can say, okay, well, this clinical trial, obviously clinical trials have their inherent limitations, but what does this medication look like in the real world, and how is it utilized by your peers? And that's a really great way to kind of get at that for the MSLs.
But it's what you just said before is the idea of the post-Congress
Yeah.
summary, right? It's a great way to get access. It's a great way to gain additional face time. Everybody's talking about access issues and having trouble getting in front of KOLs. That's a great strategy right there, is to use that pub's excuse, that's for lack of a better word, or that angle to get additional meetings. I think is brilliant. I love that.
No, thanks. I
So
mean, we focus on that. I think it's you know, we actually provide, and I've always done this wherever I'm at, is also prior training on the data when we know what's coming, not just from whatever company that we work at, but also we'll know some of the things that are released to give everyone a heads up. And so it's that cross collaboration. So, okay, I'm going to go grab that. You also are having conversations with your physicians prior to it. And if they're like, hey, have you seen anything coming up? You're like, yeah, there's these things coming up. I'll check it out for you, and I'll get back to you on what actually came up. And
yeah.
so it's really exciting and a great opportunity to continue scientific exchange and that trust.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think. So, staying on this idea or the topic of KOL engagement, how does the pub's strategy influence how MSLs should be or can engage with KOLs?
Yeah, it's critical. So to me, what the MSLs provide, which is so important, is insights from the physicians. You know, in my role, it, you can get tunnel vision if you're not on the field, right? So I think, okay, this is important. We're going to focus on this, and it's not just me. It's anyone else that's not out there in the field every single day. But the MSLs, they're providing us with the unmet needs. What are the gaps? What are they hearing from the physicians? Those gaps, those unmet needs are how we are able to then update the strategy for publications. So the MSLs play a key role because of their relationships with these physicians and understanding what works, what doesn't. I mean, I've seen it where, at other companies and whatnot, sometimes you'll present something and you kind of laid an egg, right? You
Mm,
thought this was really great data. You're presenting it to a group of physicians, and it kind of stunk, I'll be honest. And because we didn't think about it like, okay, we thought these data were great, and we didn't see this other aspect which was, oh my gosh, how did we not see that? And that's why having the MSLs involved is so key, so we don't miss those kinds of issues, because we only know what we know. And that's why, to me, teamwork and cross collaboration is so important, and why the MSLs play such an integral role in helping to shape publication strategy for a company overall. The most successful companies with the most successful publications are because of the relationships that are made from the MSLs, for sure.
fabulous. Fabulous. So, um, thinking about MSLs that are out there, and maybe you're a little more, well, actually, any MSL, are there like misconceptions? Is there any confusion? Like, talk to me a little bit. I always like to try to look at what is the other side of the equation? What else do MSLs need to know about pubs that maybe they don't know?
Yeah. So this actually comes up a fair bit. Like, we could ask in pubs, so when is this manuscript coming out? We need to have this published. And I was like, wait a minute. It's not as simple as that. So like having to have conversations, because if you're not involved in the publication space, you don't understand the nuances that go into this. And so anyone who's listening who has ever been in academia and has had the pleasure of publishing or being a peer reviewer for a journal or working as an editor in a journal, then you understand what I'm about to say, that you can only control what you can control on your side, right? So once you submit a manuscript, and again, no one really understands this unless you're actually in this, you lose control of what happens with it. So you have to wait until the journal is going to assign peer reviewers for it. And remember, these peer reviewers are usually academics who work like several jobs. Basically, they wear lots of different hats. They research, they see patients, they teach, do all these things, and then they're unpaid peer reviewers as well on top of it. So they have to find time in their 27 hours of work a day to also be a peer reviewer on these manuscripts. So each manuscript takes about 2 to 3 reviewers. They usually have 2 to 3 reviewers provide comments on it. And so it takes, like, anywhere, depending on the level of the journal, it could take anywhere from like 3 weeks to, heck, I've seen it take up to 4 to 6 months, depending on the timing and things like that, to get comments back. So you're waiting as the author, you're waiting on pins and needles, like, when are the comments going to come back? You're checking your portal every day to see it, and you finally could get it back. You have to address the comments. There may be some more back and forth. If it's finally accepted, then you have to wait until you get the page proofs from the journal to review. And then the journal has to decide what issue makes the most sense to publish the manuscript in. And it may not be the upcoming journal, the issue. It may be a different one, because there may be a couple other articles that are going to come out that make more sense to have them together. So as a submitter, the minute you submit, you lose all control on timing of when the article is actually going to be available. And so that's the thing I always try to, under promise and over deliver, right? When I'm talking with the MSLs or other medical affairs team, I'm like, look, this is what I can do. I can't control this other part. It's going to be what it's going to be, but as soon as I know, you'll know, and that's how we kind of talk about it. They feel
Yeah.
better when you explain it. So,
Yeah, no, there's a lot more to like when you put it that way, there's a lot to this. I mean, I obviously like anything else, once you like get into the weeds of it and look under the hood, you're like, wow, okay. Um, so as you're talking, you're making me think, and this is, I guess, kind of a random question, but can't help but think like how does AI influence the pub's process, both now and in the future? Like, is this like, is pubs AI proof? Like, if somebody's an MSL and they want to get into the pub side of the equation, is that an AI proof field, or do you think that artificial intelligence is going to improve the publication process?
whew, that's a tough one. So, as I mentioned, these are my personal opinions only. So,
Yeah. Well, no,
uh,
this is like this just came out this like off
yeah.
the top of my head. Like, wait a second, I didn't think of this.
No, this is actually something, and I'm just going to be transparent. This is something that I actually struggle with all the time. And this is something that actually a lot of journals are struggling with right now too. I think AI is incredibly important, and it's becoming increasingly utilized in all facets of our lives, right? It's not just here
Mm,
in our little podcast, but really anything we look at, AI is involved, and it's how to figure out the right way and the ethical way to do it. So I'm as I said, I'm more in my middle of my career, so I remember when the internet was invented, and so all this is kind of is certainly new. And um, to me, AI has a great place in with respect to doing presentations and utilizing that function from like from oral presentations at medical congresses, bringing in a lot of, you know, AR information and utilizing it to make just incredibly beautiful, well put together slides. I know a lot of agencies utilize AI in that respect, and there's a lot of conferences out there that talk about it. From a publications perspective, for me personally, and again, this is my opinion, I'm a little more hesitant with it. I think that you lose a lot with it, although it's being added. If you look at a variety of different companies, they're adding the utilization of AI in publications to like their SOP, like their standard operating procedures or their guidance documents. So it's certainly something that's being used, but with caution, because there are inherent issues with AI. There's what we call hallucinations, right?
mm,
So they can they can kind of make up stuff. And we've tested it from a publication standpoint to kind of prove the point that, people are still better at this than
yep.
AI and generating
Yep.
publications. So, and we've seen that where they actually just literally make up a reference. And
Yeah.
like, wait a minute,
You
like
can't do that.
you can't do that. And it's kind of a big no-no with the publication guidelines, and journals actually like some journals will say you cannot use AI. Some journals will say you can use AI, but you have to disclose specifically what is used. With that, some people refuse to be reviewers of manuscripts that have used AI in them. And quite frankly, I think a lot of times, and again, this is my opinion, I think you lose something from a strength of your data and the writings of the manuscript if you have to say, yeah, this is kind of AI generated, because then people think, okay, well, who's even reading this and proofing
Mhm.
it before it's being submitted? What I think AI is great with, though, if we're going to go back to the Congress situation, is you're attending a Congress that has, 5,000 abstracts there, and you need some help to kind of figure out what's important and impactful in your disease state. Dump the abstract book into AI, use your Chat GPT, Copilot, whatever it is your preference, and have them give you a layman's summary of what you need to focus on or what came out of it. And that's going to be helpful, like pre-meeting, to help guide you where to go, so you're not overwhelmed with looking at 5,000 different abstracts, or trying to search for Dr. Smith, who presents on all this stuff, and trying to find all of his stuff. That takes forever. To me, that's where AI is great, is to help with figuring out what you can look at these meetings. But for like actual like writing, I'm still like old school, like let's write it ourselves, put the pen and paper to hand, and let's go for it.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm just saying, when I wrote my book, for those of you who don't know, number one Amazon best-selling book, Job Search Mastery, How to Win Your Dream Job. For any job seekers out there, go check it out. I did not use AI once at any point. I actually purposely did my own research, did not use, not one word came from artificial intelligence in my book. Now, if I had to write a book now, what I think differently, I use chat, and like I use it so much that I think that I would have a hard time not utilizing it for certain sections for different things. Now, obviously, I would cite the source and how I came up with that, but I didn't want to go that route. I just wanted to go the route of everything came from me, from my experience, from my research. So that's how I felt. And I agree with what you're saying. I think that, like anything else, I think AI is a tool that should be used carefully and in certain situations, but you have to be careful using it for everything because it could, like, especially in the situation that you just mentioned, if there's a hallucination or if they're making up source, like you can't do that. That your whole job is to present the truth, of the findings. Otherwise, everybody could just make up anything.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think I totally agree with you. I think there is a place, an appropriate place for you to utilize AI, and you have to just make sure that you're remembering that it's not a person. So you're still gonna have to do checks on it.
Yeah.
And it actually does still make mistakes, but sometimes it can be really great, just not in writing.
Yeah.
And but I'm sure eventually it's all going to come in at some point. But I like to have job security right now, so I'll take the pen and paper and we'll keep it going with that.
So right now it's not, yeah, it's not a thing right now. It's not a thing. Jolan, you're awesome. This was
Thank
great,
you.
great conversation. Thanks for coming on and thanks for introducing this topic of pubs. Guys, like I said, Jolan brought this topic to me as an idea, and I was like, geez, this is perfect because I haven't done it. So I'm grateful that we were able to cover it. Thanks for coming on, guys. As always, thank you for your support of this show. If you got value in this, please share it with others. Appreciate you all, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.